Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the News channel. Today, we are going to continue the current affairs discussion, particularly from the Economic Survey of India, which was released on 31st of January 2025. So before going into this, let me tell you what is the intricacies that is related to Economic Survey as far as our UPSC is concerned, and how Economic Survey will help us to understand the present status of Indian economy from Indian perspective, and it will also give us some inputs on how the world economy is performing at the higher levels. Now, this economic survey, this is prescribed not only for those aspirants who are preparing for competitive examinations, but this is also very important for a general person who is very enthusiastic and who is very having these aspirations in life to achieve higher goals. The reason is, this is economic survey which discusses about how the future prospects are going to be for the country. For example, they will speak about every aspect, not only related to economics, that will be playing a very crucial role in the lives of each and everyone. Take for example, it speaks about the prices, which is going to create an impact in day-to-day earnings of the people. It speaks about the future technology that the people are focusing on. It speaks about such as artificial intelligence. It speaks about the imminent dangers of climate change and what are the things that we have to focus on. It speaks about the social sector initiatives such as what to learn, that is education, where we have to focus on, that is called health. It further focuses on how to improve our skill and how to get employment in the coming days. So it is a holistic document which gives a complete analysis of everything that is there or that is required for an individual. So that is the beauty of the subject of economics. So it is always emerging, it is always dynamic, and it is always captivating all the other subjects. It includes technology, it includes climate change, that is ecology, it includes economy, it speaks about governance issues, that is polity, and each and every aspect is being touched here. So that is one plus point that students of economics will get, by the way, from the economic survey. But the question is, what is important for us as far as economics for UPSC is considered? Now, if you want me to speak in that perspective, economic survey is important for UPSC, particularly from the perspective of prelims and mains. In the prelims, they can focus on some terminology which is being asked. Take for example, in the preface of economic survey, they have used a term called financialization and price asset bubble. So these are the things that can be expected for prelims. By the way, when we read economic survey, it is going to be of immense help when we are writing mains examination. So what I suggest before starting is, don't look at this as if we are preparing for an exam. Look at it as a person who is having some great aspirations in life. It will shed many new ideas into us. It will also make us to leave the olden ideas which were present, and it will set a tune for us to prepare for the coming days, be it at the global level or be it at the India level. So this is what I wanted to say. So let's start with this. First of all, what is economic survey? Economic survey is an attempt done by the Ministry of Finance to give the complete outlook of the economy of India from various domestic factors as well as from external factors. It studies how the economy has performed in the last 1 year, how it is going to perform in the upcoming year, be it in the medium term, that is for the next 6 months, or for the long term period. So it is a bird view of the entire economy from all the perspectives. It covers every dimension, starting with the monetary and financial systems of the country. It speaks about the prices in the country. It speaks about the sectors of the country, that is primary sector agriculture, industrial sector, service sector, and the investments and innovations that we have to bring. And most importantly, it focuses on the social justice aspect, such as social sector initiatives, which speaks about what Government of India is doing for the vulnerable sections, such as the youth, the women, the poor, and the annadata. And then it also speaks about how Government of India is investing on human development parameters, such as health, education, standard of living, improving the skills, and making people ready for the employment. Subsequently, it also dwells into some emerging challenges that the country is going to face or the people are going to face. Particularly in this economic survey, they have spoken about the health issues that is going to create impact on the youth of this country due to the consumption of high fatty acid content food items or processed foods. This was the thing that they have focused on. They have also had a separate chapter on artificial intelligence and how that is going to create an impact, whether the concerns about artificial intelligence is really placed or they been misplaced. So this is also being discussed in this economic survey. Subsequently, we will always have, from the last 4 years or 5 years, if we do observe the economic survey consistently, there has been 1 or 2 chapters on the climate change issues, and Mr. Anant Nageshwaran, the Chief Economic Advisor, is reascertaining the fact that in the next 10 years or 12 years, this chapter is going to continue. So overall, it is a complete analysis of the economy from the domestic perspective by looking at the emerging perspectives of the globe. This is what economic survey is. The next question is, who is going to release this economic survey? Economic survey is released in the country 1 day before the budget. Normally, general budget is introduced into the parliament according to Article 112 of Indian Constitution. It has to be implemented before both the houses of parliament by the President of India. On behalf of President of India, it is Finance Minister who lays down before the both houses the budget, and she is the one who is going to give the budget speech. That is normally scheduled on 1st February of every year from 2017. A day before that, 1st February, what Government of India does is, Government of India announces economic survey. Normally, this is prepared by the Ministry of Finance. In the Ministry of Finance, we know that there are 6 departments. Every ministry in India operates in 6 departments. And those who are well aware that India has 53 ministries. Indian government is operating under the departments are 53 ministries, and each and every ministry has their respective departments. In this context, Ministry of Finance also has its departments. There are 6 departments in Ministry of Finance. The first one is Department of Revenue, Department of Expenses, Department of Public Enterprises, Department of Investments and Asset Management, that is DPAM, and then we have Department of Financial Services, and the last one is Department of Economic Affairs. In this Department of Economic Affairs, you have many officers. One of the officers is Office of Economic Advisor or Office of Economic Advisor, Chief Economic Advisor. And the Chief Economic Advisor and his office is going to prepare the economic survey for the country. So this is who prepares economic survey, and the Chief Economic Advisor today for the country is Mr. Anant Nageshwaran. So this is the person and his team who has been presenting the economic survey quite from a long time. Chief Economic Advisor is the one who releases it. Now, what do we have in this economic survey? So normally, economic survey would have been released in 2 volumes, but the tradition has been changed from the last 4 years. So earlier, until 2018, the budget or the economic survey had been in 2 volumes, Volume 1 and Volume 2, which consisted in total of 20 chapters, but now they have consolidated it into only 1 volume. And this volume, from the last 2 years, if you do observe, it is consisting of 13 chapters. What they deal in these 13 chapters? Everything that is related to economy. The first chapter and 5th chapter normally goes for how economy is present, or how the Indian economy has performed in the last year particularly, and what are the global aspects that India has to face. That is what in the first chapter they will deal. Global uncertainties and how India has performed amidst this uncertainties. The 5th chapter discusses about what is the medium-term growth prospects of the country. The next chapter that they go for is studying about how the financial sector is present in the country. What do I mean by financial sector? When we study about financial sector, we study about the banks, we study about the so-called capital market, be it the stock market, insurance market, pension markets, how this is being propelled. And they will also study how money multiplier is creating impact in the economy and how it has been propelling the growth of the economy. These are the things that we normally see in the 2nd chapter. From there, the economic survey moves to the next most important microeconomic parameter, that is prices and demand in the economy. So this makes us to go and speak about something like what is inflation, how inflation levels are varied in the country, and how global inflation is present, and in context of global inflation in almost all the economies, how in India it is going to be propelled. That is some other thing that we have to discuss, and normally that will be discussed in the 2nd chapter. Subsequently, what the economic survey will focus is on the external trade. So when it comes to the external trade, normally it is studied as balance of payments. So where we discuss about what are the exports that India is having, what are the imports that we are making into the country, and what is the trade deficit and how this trade deficit is going to be present and how balance of payments are going to be impacted. All these things will be discussed in the next chapter, that is called Exports and Imports of India or External Trade of India. So 2 chapters discusses about the bird view of economy. 1 chapter discusses about the microeconomic sector or the so-called financial sector. 1 chapter discusses about the so-called inflation. Subsequently, another chapter discusses about the so-called export sector. So these are the 5 chapters. The remaining 5 chapters are focuses on sectors. Agriculture sector is one. Industries, service sector, investments. So these are the 4 things: agriculture, industries, services, investments. This is the 4 things that they discuss. After that, they will go for the social sector initiatives, where they will be focusing on the vulnerable sections of the community. Here they will be relegating 2 chapters. 1 chapter is a basic discussion, and the other chapter they will go for is they will take up a theme and they will be discussing this. So like this, 11 chapters will be covered. The last 2 chapters in this economic survey that Ananta Nageshwaran has presented is, one is on the artificial intelligence, how labor impact is going to be created by this artificial intelligence and how India has to be prepared for this in the upcoming days. That was a very great insight for each and everyone, be it an agricultural sector or be it for UPSC students or be it for any other sector. This is shedding a great light, or it is also giving a great scope on how India is being prepared for artificial intelligence. And it is also cooling our nerves for those who are thinking that artificial intelligence is going to create a great damage. So what Ananta Nageshwaran is saying is, we are not seeing that much amount of disruptions in the artificial intelligence given the size of the economy, given the size of our country. So that is another chapter that we have discussed. And the last chapter that it will be focusing on is climate change issues, as I have said. What is climate change and how India has to be ready for this climate change, whether mitigation mechanisms is possible or whether we have to go for adjustment mechanisms. These things we have discussed. So in total, this economic survey, just like the economic survey that was released in the month of July last year, it carried 13 chapters. It carried 13 chapters, starting from the so-called macroeconomic fundamentals, overview of the economy, financial sector, then it spoke about monetary terms, and then it spoke about something like external sector, and then agriculture, industries, services, infrastructure and investment models, social sector initiatives. They have given 2 chapters on that, and then they spoke about energy, that is energy and increasing changes of climate, and then the last chapter that they discussed labor reforms in the artificial intelligence evolution. So these are the things that they have given, but all this will be kept at one point in the document, that is at the starting point itself, and that is the preface. So what I have been planned is, I will be making some 13 chapters are there. If possible, I will make 13 separate videos for that, or I will be further segregating them into each chapter into 2 to 3 videos. That depends upon the length of the chapter. But I will start at a place called as preface. So every book that we study, look at the normal textbooks that we study, it starts with a preface or foreword. Even this economic survey starts with a foreword. If you study foreword, it is going to comprehensively give an analysis of the entire economic survey that is there in the 13 chapters. So preface is one thing where Mr. Ananta Nageshwaran has quickly briefed up the summary of economic survey altogether. So today I will be starting at that point, that is called preface to the economic survey. Now, what does this preface states, or what does it start saying it? So for that, what economic survey says, they beautifully start at the global context, how the globe is emerging, or what are the challenges that the globe has seen, and what are the changes, by the way, the world has seen in the year 2024. So particularly if you look at the major economies or emerging economies of the world, let's start with the US, India and Indonesia. We have seen elections in these 3 countries, and in these 3 countries there has been substantial change in the electoral patterns. If it was the re-election of Donald Trump in America, which will have a ripple effect throughout the country or throughout the world, that was a major change in US that we have to see for the upcoming 4 years, as long as Mr. Trump becomes or holds that office. And in India, in the year 2024, we have seen the re-election of the incumbent government, under Honorable Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi. And the same thing has happened in Indonesia. The ruling party has come to power and they have been taking up the economy. So three major economies have went for elections in the last year, and that is going to have a great impact, be it India's relationship with the so-called Indonesia or India's relationship with the so-called America. This is one context. Then look at what is happening in Europe. If you come to Europe, Europe is going under turmoil. There was one Italian Prime Minister, Denio Marghi. Now what this person has said is, European economy has been under great stress in the recent years. Whatever the great potential that European economy has achieved, thanks to the so-called multilateral institutions that has emerged after 1995, slowly in the year, as we have entered into post-pandemic years, the European economy do not have that leveraging capacity. That is what his great comment as far as European economy is considered. And by the way, he was a London man from Europe. Now, if you look at Europe, there are some countries which are playing a very crucial role in Europe as far as that we have to see in the last few years, starting with Germany. So if you look at Germany, which was an industrialized country and perhaps the most powerful country in the entire European Union bloc, Germany is under turmoil as far as economy is considered. Its economy is stumbling, or its economy is constantly fluctuating in the last 2 years. That is the biggest challenge that Germany is facing. And in this February, so this month, they are going for elections. We have to look and wait and watch how Germany is going to unfold to the world. When it comes to other countries, let's go for France. We had a snap elections in France in the last year. And then France economy is also having some political turmoil. As a result, political and economic effects are being felt in France. Going back to Britain, in Britain, what we have seen after a very long time, Labour Party has come to power under the dominance of the Prime Ministership of Rishi Sunak last year. We have seen these changes, and UK is also suffering from the so-called economic turmoil. So when you go for France, UK and Germany, this gives an outlook of the entire Europe that Europe is really under constant threat of China's dominance, and most importantly, these economies are constraining given the scope of high energy needs. What Europe is facing is they wanted to go for transition of the energy from the fossil fuels to the so-called non-fossil fuel based energy. For that, they are struggling to introduce renewable energy sources. But these renewable energy sources, be it solar or wind, they do not have these resources. The resources are imported from China, by the way. And what China is doing is, China is costing them very high. Hence, Europe is going under turmoil. They have to adjust with the global climate change. And for that, they have to go for renewable energy. In order to purchase that renewable energy resources, they are dependent on China. As a result, China is holding more power in Europe today compared to the 19th and 20th century. This is what a landscape of Europe is. And more or less, whatever is applicable to Europe, we can apply that to India also. That I'll come in a brief. After that, going to this context that is called the context of China, which is an Asian giant and, by the way, the most emerging economy in the world today. So China also has come out of the pre-pandemic or it has come out of the COVID crisis, and it started performing to the pre-pandemic levels. But one thing that we observe in China is there is no new momentum in China. The same momentum that was present in the year 2018 and 17, that is even continued today. Subsequently, one of the most important thing that was observed in China is China has become a manufacturing giant long back. And last year itself, the total number of exports from China has increased, and it has got a trade surplus of $1 trillion that no other country has got. So if you look at the economy of China, though internally China is not expanding to that extent, thanks to its manufacturing base, thanks to its critical resource production base, China is expanding the market much before, and it has been clocking high levels of trade surplus. That is what China is uniquely positioned in Asia. So these are the countries which is having some greater impact in the world. The rest of the countries are emerging, developing countries. So if you look at the emerging or developing economies of the world, more or less they are always under the constant pressure of these global countries, be it USA or be it Europe or be it China. They are always reeling under the pressure. So last year what it has happened, due to the price fluctuations in the American dollar, majority of these currencies have been devaluated, and that resulted in the loss of economies for the major world. So emerging economies are under the constant pressure of American policies, be it the monetary policies of the Federal Bank or be it the so-called the devaluation of American currency or the local currencies due to the American currency fluctuations. So this is what emerging economies are created. So in short, if you look at the advanced economies of the global north and the emerging economies of the global south, more or less everything is in a turmoil except a positive point is for China, as well as with the election of Donald Trump back to his presidency, there might be some constant changes to the multilateral world order. This is the world that we are situated in. Given this context, we have to understand how that is going to impact India. Right, that is what the analysis that we are going to make. So here, what Anant Nageshwaran says is, India is also placed in a very good position thanks to the pre-COVID pandemic evolutions that we have seen, and we have been consistent in the post-pandemic evolutions also. India is one of the most or fast emerging sector today. In almost each and every field, we have substantially grown. And here, what our CEO says, Chief Economic Advisor says, he says that we have to focus on agriculture, we have to focus on poor, we have to focus on women, we have to focus on climate change issues, and we have to give something called industrial boost or industrial momentum to the country, thereby make this country ready for 2047, that is to achieve developed status. And the model of the entire economic survey is based on reforming the governance. So they have focused on reforming the governance. Most importantly, they want to deregulate the economy to further extent. So what is deregulation? You have to make government not to intrude into each and everything which is constraining the capacities of the private individuals or the so-called corporates who are entering into the business. So there should be some freedom for these corporates. There should be some freedom for the individuals to operate in their own domain and to unleash their potential. So for that, what economic services is, we have to deregulate the economy, and that was famously stated as get out of my way. So you don't come across my way, get out of my way. So the entire economic survey, more or less in every chapter, they have discussed about this thing that is called how to make government to get out of the way of the private people, because in the upcoming days, it is the private people which is going to dominate the economy. So this is what he said. With a caution, however, we should not forget that he is also cautioning that getting out of way is not only the solution. At times, there should be some regulation in some sectors. So this is a combination of both. So more or less, this economic survey is speaking about how to ensure that government is providing momentum or the fuel that is required for the private players to operate and thereby provide a great momentum for the country. So this is what the preface is. So let us go through the document and then we will understand the final details. So more or less, this is a summary of what is there in the preface. So as I said, we'll be discussing with the so-called the preface itself. So this is economic survey. So how the Indian elephant is moving amidst the global circumstances. So that is the reason why I have chosen this image. So economic survey 2024-25, how Indian economy is rolling out. We know India is of an elephantine size, and how to propel this elephant to move one step at a time towards the growth. So that is what it is discussed. So this is class 1 preface, where we are going for what are the things that economic survey underscores or undermines. One thing, So the preface underlines, so this is not first chapter, this is preface. Preface means the foreword to the economic survey or the starting point of economic survey. So it says that the underlying theme of economic survey is deregulation. So deregulation is the underlying theme of this economic survey. Deregulation means get out of my way. This is what I said. The second thing is India need to make an all-out effort to attract and facilitate further domestic and foreign investments to propel our growth. So attract more foreign direct investments and propel the economy domestically by ensuring that the local domestic investors are investing in the economy. For this, you have to clear the way for them. Next one is India should focus on climate change adaptation than on emission mitigation. So he says that if you are trying to mitigate, that is going to be a costly affair. So we have to go for emission adaptation mechanisms in order to ensure that the country is having some sustainable path of development. Next one is he is also saying on artificial intelligence. For that we have to develop centers of excellence or top educational institutions. By the way, in this budget also Government of India has clearly stated that we are going to have it. Next, it is speaking about nurturing mental, emotional and physical needs of the Indian youth through the so-called reducing the consumption of ultra-processed foods. So this was a quick summary that they have given. So what is there in the preface? The first one is deregulation stimulus. So where the government is saying that government should give or get out of the way for the businesses to focus on their mission and to achieve significant contributions. For that, what government has to do? Government has to not include too much into the regulatory mechanisms. So what we have to do is we have to ensure that they are innocent until proven guilty. But the present mechanism is a government more often considers people as guilty until they are proven innocent. So in general, the judicial norm should be this: innocent until proven guilty. But unfortunately, as far as business is considered, this is the other way around. So the survey says this should be changed, and then a trust-based society and economy has to be built up to make India to be Viksit Bharat by 2047. So this is clearing the way by trusting the private people and the corporates, private individuals and the private corporates, so that they will be enhancing in their contribution. This trust is going to act as a key role for the development in the upcoming days. This may appear like the LPG reforms that we have seen in the year 1991. Next, facilitating strategic investments. Now this is speaking about in which areas we have to promote the investments into the country. Given the ecology of all the developing, developed and underdeveloped economies, the survey says that we have to focus on global supply chains, and we have to ensure that India is becoming one of the most important player for strategic investments. So the next thing that it focuses is climate change and energy transition. So what they say is, it says that the most important thing for India is to understand the so-called how we are importing the critical technology which is required for artificial intelligence or for renewable energy. In that backdrop, well, we have to balance the usage of renewable energy with the non-renewable energy sources such as coal and fuel. The next one is skilling and education, how skilling has to be promoted for that particularly artificial intelligence skilling. Artificial intelligence centers of excellence has to be developed at the top educational institutions, and it is recommending that in the budget 1 lakh crore has been allotted for it, and that is going to play a very crucial role. And the emerging thing is artificial intelligence. We have to ensure how that is going to be applicable and what are the limitations of this artificial intelligence for a rich country like India. And then it focuses on healthy living habits and to avoid ultra processed foods while we are consuming it. And then it is focusing on priorities of Nari Shakti, that is women, the youth of this country, the Krishi, that is farmers of this country, and the so-called Garib, the poor. So this is focusing on the development of all these 3 sections or 4 sections. And then external sector challenges, you have some external sector challenges, and it is focusing on all these external sector challenges. Now if you go in-depth analysis, as I said, this is about Department of Economic Affairs, ladies and gentlemen. So to start here, I said Ministry of Finance is having 6 departments: Department of Expenditure, Department of Revenue, DPAM, Department of Investment and Public Asset Management, Department of Public Enterprises, Department of Financial Services, Department of Economic Affairs. This is the one who announces economic survey. Inside this department there is Chief Economic Advisor, and his team is the one who is preparing economic survey. So to go in detail about the economic survey preface, if you open the economic survey, if you download the economic survey, this is the first page of the economic survey, and this is prepared by Department of Economic Affairs, Economic Division, North Block, New Delhi. Chief Economic Advisor is the one who prepares it. This is previous year question. Now what is preface? In the preface will contain what are the contents. So the contents are preface, acknowledgements, all this is being given in the first 40 pages, where I will have a quick recap today, and this is number class 1. Subsequently there are 13 chapters, as I have said. Chapter 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. All these chapters are the chapters that I have said in my introduction class, in my preview, right? So what exactly is this person is saying? So to start with, lowering the cost, driving domestic growth and resilience to deregulation. This is what the major goal of economic survey is, deregulation, and that is what in the preface itself economic survey says it. Now they have spoken about year 2024. I have given a quick summary on the left hand side margins for those people who can download it and who want to go through this document at a quicker pace. So year 2024 we have seen a majority changes in 3 big democracies, in India, in America and Indonesia. In India, incumbent has come to office. In Indonesia, the ruling party with a different leader has come to office. And then in USA, what we say is, the re-election of Donald Trump back to his presidency. These are going to create an impact for the global movement. Going for Europe, we have seen the faces in Germany, France, UK, and one of the most important challenges for all these countries is high energy transition that they are involved into. So by looking at Europe itself, to some extent what you can say is the global economic activity has been volatile in Europe, and as a result we can say that among all the regions in the world, Europe is one thing which is facing some challenge at this point of time. Coming to the Asian giant and the emerging giant of the world, that is China. Chinese economy has been opened, but one of the biggest challenges in Chinese economy is the real estate sector in China, and the financial spreads in China are still lagging, and there is a weak demand in the domestic economy, and there is deflationary pressures in China. There is no demand. But when it comes to the exports, it has been exported with a surplus of $1 trillion in 2024. That is one great achievement. For the emerging markets is the next paragraph. As I said, US dollar has been strengthening. Because of this, the other currencies have become weakened, and they are facing high borrowing cost. So emerging markets are under the pressure of high interest rates whenever they borrow from the developed countries. So in this backdrop of all the countries, Indian economy has to be pursued. And what economic services is, stock markets worldwide are at elevated prices, and there are high risks that is associated with each and every market in the country as far as stocks are considered. Then when it comes to the European Union, as I said, Mario Draghi has said, this is a famous statement that Mario Draghi has quoted. The European Union also benefited from a favorable global environment. World trade burgeoned under multilateral rules. The safety of the US security umbrella freed up defense budgets to spend on other priorities. This is what Donald Trump is focusing on. You are developing at the safety that I am providing. Why should America provide safety net for the Europeans, and you grow at my cost? That is the reason US President is saying that I withdraw, or I am ready to withdraw from all the institutions which is charging heavily on USA, and I wanted to come back and cut that cost. In that line itself, US President went to such an extent that he is ready to take a step back even in North Atlantic Treaty Organization or NATO. But however, Mario Draghi is very clear that the foundations on which we are built are now being shaken. The global paradigm is changing, and the rapid world trade growth has passed. So USA or European Union, by the way, is suffering from a challenge with this statement of Mario Draghi. Under this backdrop, we have to analyze how India's growth story is present. So India's growth story is more or less against facing the same challenges from China. We are facing the global uncertainties, and there is no export potential at the global level due to the weak demand that it has created at the globe. Subsequently, what we have to focus is, we have to focus on the local level. We have to focus on domestic growth levers and develop the external sector. The next thing that he is speaking is, one of the best thing compared to India and Europe, though Europe is struggling, one best option that India has is, India is an youthful nation, unlike the aging nations of European Unions. And second one is, we have good demographic profile and we have aspiring youth. They can be the fuel for propelling up this economy. And then India has to also ensure that it has to diversify its energy basket. India is aspiring to go for solar and wind, just like the European powers. But unfortunately, the critical minerals that are required for the production of this renewable energy are imported from China. What are the critical equipments? For example, in the solar energy sector, you require monocrystalline silicon ingot and polysilicons and wafers. All these are not present in India. They are imported and they form crucial elements in solar energy production, and this comes at a high cost. As a result, if India wants to diversify its energy basket to solar and wind, subsequently we have to depend on China. If you are dependent on China, it is going to create impact for strategical purpose. So energy security has to be visualized with the so-called strategic vision. I cannot compromise my strategic securities for the sake of renewable energy. That is what Anand Subramanian is saying. Next one is, we have to promote to domestic and foreign investments so that India will become the hub, or we develop internally rather than focusing on external growth. Alternative sources of development has to be there in the country. And India is also aspiring to change its mobility to electronic mobiles. Again, the same thing here. We are importing much of the things from the so-called China. As a result, energy change should also be considered in this context of how we have to produce raw materials within India, how to support the domestic industries, develop the raw materials or all the equipments that is necessary for this electrical vehicles within India. As a result, we can propel. And given the needs for public transport, as Indian population is going to emerge, and given the limited availability of land, what we have to do is, public transport is the one which Government of India has to consider very seriously. After that, everyone should be given education, unskilling in the emerging technologies like artificial intelligence. Right? The collaboration between academic institutions and businesses has to be done at the earliest, and innovation should be facilitated by the centers of excellence. This is what they are saying. So artificial intelligence centers has to be promoted across the country. When it comes to the so-called agriculture, if you want to become Viksit Bharat without agriculture and a sustainable development in the primary productivity, we cannot ensure that growth. As a result, Anand Subramanian is saying that we have to focus on these lines. Next one is, as far as philosophical approach to governance is, getting out of the way. I said why we have to get out of the way. This ensures that there is trust, and they will ensure that they are developing with the financial wisdom that they possess, rather than intruding into each and everything. So these two paragraphs are again speaking on that, getting out of the way, so that right from the day one, all the developed countries of the world have ensured that there is minimum deregulation, or those countries which went for deregulation have substantially improved. In this slide, they are speaking about the same thing. And then, however, the survey is very cautious that I will make you a free line, but that doesn't mean that the non-government actors are misutilizing it. Non-government actors in the economy have to vindicate the trust that is reposed on them, and they have to live up to the standards that the Government of India is giving. So it should be a bi-directional way. It cannot be an unidirectional way as far as trust is considered. So this entire chapters are going to discuss, or this entire paragraphs are discussing about deregulation, getting out of the way, improving the trust, reciprocity by the so-called private people in the government. As a result, there will be a collaboration and cooperation of both government as well as the private institutions in reposing and developing this. After that, one of the biggest challenges that the country is facing is majority of the people are going for financialization and price asset bubbling. Now, what is this financialization? This is important for prelims. Financialization and asset price bubbles. Financialization means, look at the term. Financialization means giving more and more trust on financial sector rather than on actual real productive sectors. Take for example, if I am earning 2 lakhs per month, if I invest that to 2 lakhs in some business, take for example, if I want to start a business of coaching center, then that to 2 lakhs is going to this coaching center, and that will be expanding the base, because if I start coaching center, some institutions will be developed, some people gets employed, these things. But if I take this 2 lakhs and if I keep it in the banks, thinking that the banks will give me loans, banks will be giving me interest rate, or if I go and keep it in stock market thinking that that will give me more and more money. So rather than using the money for active production purposes, if I am using it for financing these things, then the actual amount that has to be kept in the institutions or kept in the economy will come down, and this will be routed through this segment. So financialization means diverting the money from the actual production to the so-called financial sectors, thinking that we will get some interest and thinking that we'll get short-term gains. So this is what the problem that we have. That is what Ananta Nageshwaran is pointing out. We'll come that in the subsequent chapters. The next thing that Ananta Nageshwaran says is about youth. India has vast potential of youth, and in order to realize the potential of this youth, they have to be mentally fit, emotionally fit, physically fit, and we have to be very healthy. In order to nurture our youth in that way, what we have to focus is we have to focus on the health that people are possessing. This is one extremely good point in the economic survey, which we have to take care of. Every person in the country has to take care of this, whether to focus on the ultra processed foods or whether we have to consume normal foods like vegetables, fruits. These things is consumed. And there was a startling fact here. In 2006, the total amount of money that was spent by the people on the processed foods was somewhere around $900 million. But today, if you look at the total money that we have spent, it has increased to $37.9 billion. A substantial increase was seen in the processed foods, and this is a cause of worry for the country in the upcoming days. And then it speaks about the social sector initiatives. So what it says is you go for focusing on the youth, invest on the youth, develop the skill, develop the education, provide them the physical and mental health, and then ensure that there is a skill and employment. That is the way to build our youth. The second one is Garib. Go for targeted support mechanisms for the Garib, and look at the so-called women, liberate women from each and every regulatory hurdles that they are facing, be it the legal hurdles, be it the regulatory hurdles that block them from participation into the labor force. For example, there are some social sectors inhibitions on women, which is not giving a free hand for the women to come out and to propel it. So whatever is inhibiting women to come and perform in the economy, that things has to be taken out and the women has to be liberated further. That is what economic service is. The next one is on employment and skill development. As we have spoken, it is focusing on that so-called deregulation aspect in the entire thing. Subsequently, if you go for the so-called chapter on external sector development, it focuses on the so-called trade restrictive policies which is being observed in all the countries. And India is going to face some current account deficit on this front. So how India has to be ready. These things they have discussed. And then come to the artificial intelligence, whether artificial intelligence is going to be really a threat for us or not. This was discussed in 2 chapters. So artificial intelligence, enormous demand for water and electricity is required, and water for this at the same time we are speaking about energy. This is one thing that economic survey focuses on. If you are wanting or if you are hoping to go for artificial intelligence, they are high energy intensive sectors. If they are high energy intensive sectors, from where you are going to produce energy? If you are producing energy from fossil fuels, your renewable energy sources are going to get diminished. So there has to be a trade-off between these two. That is what he is saying. I'll go in depth when I come to this chapter, but that is what more or less is making it. So energy transition should be mindful for the country also. This is what the article is speaking. So these three paragraphs is speaking on artificial intelligence and how to balance the energy needs with the so-called rising technological demands. And from the next paragraph, CEA says about the chapters. The first and fifth chapter speaks about near and medium term outlooks of the country and the global developments that is going to happen. And then in the first chapter they have given the real economic growth rate, and he is also going to tell how Government of India is going to improve that in the upcoming days. The next one is the Indian economy is also showing a steady growth path, and macroeconomic health indicators are extremely good according to the economic survey, and the growth average in the next 2 decades will require to reap the demographic benefit, and Government of India is focusing on these things. The more you sweat in peace, the less you bleed in war. This is what he is saying, or in essence, this is what he is pointing out. So if you look at this economic survey more or less, this is what Mr. Anantha Nageshwaran has pointed out, and he is the Chief Economic Advisor of India, and this is Government of India's preface as far as budget is considered. So after this, in the preface, they have given what are the chapters, what are the abbreviations. Abbreviations are not important unless and until you are preparing for some local exams. And they have said what are the tables, list of tables that were used in this economic survey. So when we come to chapter by chapter, I will go through these tables. And then charts, they have given what are the various charts, and then what are the various list of boxes. List of boxes means they will be telling about what are the important things that they will be dealing. So when I come to the respective chapters, I'll go through each and everything which is present here. So few chapters are very large in their outlook, and few chapters are very small in their outlook. So depending upon the chapters, we'll go and we will analyze how this economic survey is being presented for the country. Right. This is what the first chapter, by the way, is on the so-called preface. As I said, this is just a preface article. When I come to the so-called from first chapter, we will get more outlook into this. So what is my summary here? The summary is simple, ladies and gentlemen. Don't make the things complicated. For every video, what I will be doing is I will be giving you some inputs on where we have to focus on. For every chapter, I will be writing a summary for every paragraph in 1 or 2 lines. I will be giving it below, beside it. You can download all the documents from my Telegram channel. Right, the Telegram channel link is provided below. And why this is important? As I said, UPSC mains answer writing, you can write it. Just like financialization term was discussed, they can ask some terms in prelims. But in mains, substantiation for answers is important. And above all, as I said, never look at these type of documents only for examination purpose. Think that as we are aspiring, we are youth of this country, we want to aspire and we want to tackle how the things are changing in the world. In order to tackle that and in order to capture the emerging opportunities from the market, we have to be ever ready. That is one advantage that this education always gives. So what I want to speak is utilize this educational opportunity that we are possessing here, and that is going to add one of the great aspects for the country altogether and for ourselves altogether. So this is a small preface. I will be going into chapter by chapter. So preface, as I said, it is a summary of entire chapters. When we go inside the chapters, each and every chapter will be clear. So I will be starting with chapter number 1 in tomorrow's class. You can consider this as the beginning point of economic survey. So those who are interested to read the preface, just download this from my Telegram channel from the link that is given below. And thanks for joining. Have a great day. I wish you all the very best.